Hello boys and girls, my name is White Rhino PSO, and today I have something special planned. Now, lately I've been thinking that I would like to play something for the channel that is significantly longer than the games I've been playing so far. So what better time to do that than the beginning of a brand new year? And since some of my favorite games have been RPGs made by Bethesda, I decided that I would play The Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall. Now, in a future video, I'm going to explain why I decided to skip the first Elder Scrolls game, Arena, but for now, I would like to get straight in and start a brand new game. So the first thing that they have you do when you start a game is choose your race, and you do this by clicking on which of the different provinces of Tamriel that your character supposedly would have come from. Now, there's two things to note. First of all, there's no Orzammar, because in Daggerfall, you can't play as an orc. The city of Orzammar, I believe, is somewhere in this little area of High Rock, and I think you can actually go there throughout the game because the game takes place in Daggerfall, which is roughly here. The other thing to note is that even though the Imperial province is listed here in the middle, you can't play as an Imperial character either. So you have to choose from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, one of the 8 different, the other races. The character I came up with to play for this playthrough is going to be a High Elf, which comes from Somerset Isle. I'm pretty sure they changed the spelling of Somerset Isle between this and later games. Oh, there we go. High Elves hail from the province of Somerset. You are a part of a tall, golden-skinned people, extremely intelligent, agile, and willful. The magical nature of Somerset Isle has made the High Elves natural spellcasters who are immune to paralyzing poisons and spells. Is your character to be a High Elf? That would be yes. And she is going to be a female. So you can choose your class in 2 different ways. You can generate the class by answering 10 questions, which is kind of interesting because each time you answer a question, it will light up one of the 3 major constellations, like the mage, the warrior, or the thief. And then that will help determine which of the different classes you are. But pretty much everybody in the game picks a custom class, and I'll explain why, and it's a very good reason. So you go way down here and pick custom. All right, this screen looks a little intimidating, but is actually fairly simple. This is back in the days when classes in Elder Scrolls games still worked based on skills. So you still have the 8 different major attributes, which they're listed as 50 as being kind of an average. Later on, there's dice rolls that let you add or subtract to these. And you pick your primary, major, and minor skills. Every time you level up, it takes 15 skill increases in order to make that level. And those skill increases, I believe, are anytime your primary skills increase, your 2 highest major skills, and then your 1 highest minor skill. And the difficulty dagger here, depending on like what advantages and disadvantages you take, will adjust that dagger so that in the average, it takes, an average amount of uses of a skill before it decides to level up. You can make things easier by making it really easy for the skill to level up or really hard for it to level up. So the skills I'm going to choose, I actually have this written down so I don't have to Alt-Tab to a notepad file. Critical Strike, which no matter what weapon you're using, this skill will make it so you potentially do a lot more damage with a hit. Next up is... where is it? Oh, try to use that. Dodging, because Daggerfall doesn't have specific armor skills, like Morrowind had light, medium, and heavy, and Skyrim had light and heavy. there's no armor skills in Daggerfall, so the best bet is to take dodging, because that's just a chance that your character will dodge whatever attack is coming at them. Usually, I like to put a magical skill as the last primary, because you also get a boost. Like, your primary skills start off like the low to mid 30%, your major skills the low to mid 20s, and then the minors are roughly around 15%. So because I'm going to be using a lot of restoration stuff, I decided to put it as a primary to get that initial boost. Plus, any magical skills, the higher your skill percentage is, the less mana or magicka it takes to cast that spell. For majors, I decided to go with you usually only really need one weapon skill in most Elder Scrolls games, but there aren't a whole lot of weapon options available in Daggerfall. If you go with Longblade, there's, I think, the most options at like something like 4 one-handed and 2 or 4 two-handed weapons. The character I'm playing, I'm kind of role-playing as well as playing against the game mechanics itself. So I decided I would go with the weapons she would normally use, which would be axes and blunt weapons. So anytime I find an axe or a staff or a mace, then I'll be able to use it, although its percentage might be kind of low if I've been significantly using the other kind of major skill. And also, I want to throw destruction in there to help with certain enemies can only be hit by certain types of material. So if you have an iron axe, you're not going to be able to hit like an imp. For that, I think you need steel or better. But destruction, I believe, works no matter what kind of enemy it is. And for minors, I'm just putting in stuff that I want a slight boost in, like medical. When you sit down to rest, which works kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, it spends hours worth of time, but it also heals you over time. And your medical skill makes it so you heal more while you're taking that rest. What else did I want? I wanted mercantile so that it's easier to buy and sell early on. You can try and sell like 2,000 gold worth of items to a shopkeeper, and early on, usually he'll offer something like 800 gold for it. So having mercantile is going to help with that. I'm going to put in running just to make my character a little faster. Swimming, because there are underwater areas of the game that... and I think there's a water-breathing spell, but the character I decided I wanted to play in Daggerfall, I kind of picture her more as a mix between like a cleric and a paladin. So, like destruction magic to attack the evil, restoration, but I'm not going to go all that heavily on magical skills, even though quite a few of them are really useful. And then climbing, because without being able to levitate, climbing is a very helpful skill. And before I choose my last skill, I'm going to talk about some of the other ones in here. Archery is kind of terrible in Daggerfall. I believe archery didn't really start getting good until Oblivion, maybe back in Morrowind. But it's not really worth using at all in Daggerfall. Backstabbing works with stealth. It's bonus damage if you're behind an enemy, and stealth is not all that good in Daggerfall. Just like with archery, I think it didn't start getting good until Oblivion. Lockpicking, you only get one attempt to pick a lock on any door, and if you fail, then you either have to use a spell to open it or just bash the door down. Hand-to-hand, is somewhat useful, and it might be worth trying out like a monk-style character in the future someday, but I prefer having like the bonus damage itself of weaponry. When you're talking to NPCs, you can talk to them normally, or you can talk to them blunt, or you can be polite. And blunt and polite work off of streetwise down here and etiquette up here, which is actually the last skill I'm going to take because I feel it kind of goes with the whole paladin thing. They're not super useful, but I think some of the quests you can get involve talking to royalty, and it's always good to have that little etiquette so you can talk to them politely because they might like you more. What else? Pickpocket. At most, you pickpocket like 10 gold off of a person, and I believe you can only pickpocket off of normal NPCs, but you might be able to off of humanoid enemies as well. It's not overly useful, unless you're trying to get into the Thieves Guild, which you have to successfully pickpocket 10 different people in order to even be offered entrance. Then you got your different magic skills like thaumaturgy, mysticism, illusion, alteration. All really useful because they all have good tool-style applications when you're dungeon diving, but like I said, I'm playing something that's sort of closer to a cleric or a paladin, so I'm not choosing those. The other skills, such as Daedric, Dragonish, Giantish, Nymph, Orcish, those are all really strange because they're all language skills. And the way those work is, say you see an orc in the dungeon. When you get within a certain range from them, the game checks your orcish skill. And if it passes that check, then the orc will not be hostile to you. That is something that really you just cannot rely on at all in the game. And so just there's like 8 to 10 different language skills that are all basically useless in the game. So a lot of your class creation is the roleplay aspect, like I'm going with the different selection, but also the magical tool applications, and then also just playing to the game's mechanics, meaning like there's not as big of a reason to take stuff like stealth or backstabbing or any of the language skills. Now, special advantages and disadvantages, these are different aspects of your character that can help and hinder you. And each one you choose, if it's an advantage, will raise the quote-unquote difficulty dagger, and the disadvantages will lower the difficulty dagger. I do have a short list of ones that I decided to take for this character. Athleticism, so my character just starts off better at running and swimming and climbing. Adrenaline rush, which when my character is low on hit points, it gives them a boost to their combat skills, as well as, I think, their critical strike and dodging. And increased magery, which it's really not easy to tell with the pixels here, but you can do normal intelligence and spell points, which I think in order to cast magic at all, you have to take one of these. Normally you get your intelligence and spell points, but you can add that 1.5, 1.75, 2 times, or 3 times. And you generally want to go 3 times intelligence and spell points, no matter what class you're playing, if you're planning on casting spells at all. And also expertise in axes and expertise in blunt, which just will make those easier for me. It'll make it easier for me to hit and do damage with each of those types of weapons. And then you even it out by taking some special disadvantages. Now, certain races have innate abilities in this game. Like the Nords, just like in Skyrim and other games, are resistant to frost. The High Elves are completely immune to paralysis. which is a really horrible status effect. If an enemy paralyzes you, the only way you can get out of it is either having it wear off, or I believe you casting a spell of free action. So if anything like a spider or a scorpion paralyzes you, you just about want to reload your save game. Now, because the High Elves have an immunity, you can then take a critical weakness to paralysis, and the immunity will still overwrite that. So it is kind of cheesy, but taking this cuts down on the difficulty for advancing my skills. What's this other one? Oh yeah, you can do forbidden weaponry missile weapons, because I don't plan on using bows whatsoever. And forbidden materials. There's a list of different materials that armor and weapons can be made out of in the game, and one of the higher end ones is Daedric. But in working with the idea that my character is kind of like that paladin cleric thing, I decided to make it so I cannot use Daedric items whatsoever. Oop, and I accidentally just deleted it again. Where is it? Forbidden material, Daedric. So I have a slightly higher difficulty, increasing each of my skills than average. But that's not so bad, because you level up a lot just from exploring dungeons, and exploring dungeons is probably 80 to 90% of what the gameplay is anyway. And also I can give myself a little boost in maximum hit points I get every time I level up. Oh, I almost forgot. There are a ridiculous number of different reputations in the game. But you can start off by adjusting how 5 of them feel toward you. Merchants, peasants, scholars, nobility, and underworld. And given that my character is kind of a goody two-shoes, I had decided I was going to lower the underworld's reputation of me. But because of that, the nobility and... Actually, no, it wasn't nobility. I think it was... Merchants and peasants like me a little bit better, which the peasants only really help when you're trying to get directions, but yeah. And the class title I had come up with was the Vigilant. Alright, so after you do that, then the game wants to give you a little backstory on your character, and you can do this by just having the game straight choose on its own for you, or my favorite is choosing the character's career path by answering 12 important career decisions that will influence my background. Alright. Number 1, your favorite weapon type is... I think I'm going to start with axes. What motivates you into a life of adventure? Helping others, which I think gives you boosted reputation towards somebody. Which of the following skills have you been studying the longest? Just based on wanting to not take as much damage, I'm going to go with dodging. As a child, your nickname was? These just give you a slight boost to different stats. I think Monkey is climbing, Quicksilver's running, Rabbit, I'm not sure, Guppy is swimming, and Scrapper is hand-to-hand. I think I'm going to take a bonus to running. You were loaned and later allowed to keep. Starting off with an elven flail would be very tempting. But with the whole roleplayish aspect, I think I'm going to go with a book. What god, if any, do you worship? I'm going to go with Stendar, the god of mercy. You have the most trouble. Resisting poisons, get along with others, magic, disease. I'm going to say resisting poisons, because if you get poisoned, it's going to eat away and kill you very Yeah, if there's going to be a lot of save scumming anytime you play Daggerfall, and you just about want to save after every combat. And if you get poisoned, it will eat away at you and kill you very quickly. Whereas if you get diseased, you have more time to do stuff, but I think it takes a while before the game even tells you that you're diseased. So I'm going to go with poisons. Yeah. Since childhood, you have saved a book, a pearl, gold, or arrows. I think I'm going to go with pearl just because I kind of like the idea that she was given a pearl by maybe a friend or a family member and then just kept it forever. I am friendlier than most with. Usually I pick the immodest nymphs just because of the interesting mental image of that. Given 200 gold pieces as a reward, you decided to save it, get a book, a dagger, a ruby, or a staff. The easiest start, I believe, involves taking the ebony dagger and short blade as a skill, because the ebony dagger is not only one of the best materials of a weapon you can get, but also does some of the most damage. I think I'm going to buy a staff with that money. You spend any free time you have training with, and I'm going to go with blunt weapons here, just in case they... I mean, which of those options you choose in the previous question is, I believe, what you start off in the game with, so I'm going to go with blunt weapons here. I'm an intimate friends with... I'm going to say a mage. My reputation has changed as follows. The commoners like me more, but the merchants and the rest of them are just as normal. And her name is Castal Black. I can't remember what of the faces I had decided for her. I think it was this one. Alright, and now... shit, I forgot to change the stats on her class earlier. Whatever. So now the game rolls dice to decide slight boosts to each of your stats, and then gives you some points to put into those. I'm going to give a slight boost. See, 55 times 3, I only have 165 spell points, or... Oh yeah, it doesn't call it magicka in this one, or mana. It's just spell points. Alright. She's already pretty quick. I'm going to give her some more endurance. Gives her another hit point and a +1 to her healing. You can't lower any of your stats from here. Give her a little bit more strength, and then... some willpower. And then you get some points to add to each of your primary skills. I think I'm going to mostly dodging, but even out the rest. I've got a lot into axe, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to start off with a blunt. I'm going to start off with a blunt weapon, but I want a little bonus to destruction as well. And then, I think medical. Swimming is something you definitely need a little boost in, and might as well put some into climbing. Now, I'm not entirely sure what this part means. It basically, player reflexes determine overall speed of the game. If you pick very high, the monsters will move and attack quickly, forcing you to be quick on the controls. Very low means the monsters will move and attack slowly. But this also adjusts how quickly your character levels up as well. Very high reflexes mean you get a slight bonus to leveling up, whereas very low means you get a less of a bonus. Now, I recently watched a guy playing, and he said the only thing to put it on is very high, because later Elder Scrolls games just assumed you had very high reflexes, and that's how they played. And when I played, I did a little test just recently, and very high seemed to be fine, but also I didn't really notice a difference, except I think the monsters died a little bit faster. So I'm going to put this on very high and hope I don't regret it later, because I don't think you can change it later on. Alright, and that is it. That is the character I'm going to play, Castal Black the Vigilant. And I am going to start it off now. Sadly, I'm not going to get to actual gameplay during this video, but at least I'll be able to get through the opening cutscenes.
"400 years after Tiber Septim's reign, the beginning will meet the end, and the bloody circle will close in the empire of Tamriel. The unworthy heirs of the Septim dynasty have allowed the bonds of the empire to weaken and crack. Uriel Septim the Seventh cannot repair what his ancestors ignored. The provinces fight among themselves like neglected children, drunk with rebellion, and one indomitable power hides itself, but not forever."
Excuse the gloom, but none may know of this meeting. The nature of my trouble is darker still. Over a year ago, King Lysandus of Daggerfall died honorably on the field of battle. He was as loyal a subject, ally, and friend as you are. I did grieve for him, but his spirit does not rest. With a spectral army, he haunts his former kingdom, crying for revenge. I do not know why a good and loyal man would be so cursed. Perhaps you can find the answer and close the marble jaws of oblivion, bringing peace to his soul. I ask this as your emperor and your friend. I have one lesser request. Several years ago, I wrote a letter to the Queen of Daggerfall. It never arrived. The letter was of a sentimental and personal nature. If you find and destroy that letter, I will be grateful. Now, my champion, rest well this night, for tomorrow you sail for the kingdom of Daggerfall.
All right, so we have our main quest for Daggerfall is a two-part sort of thing. First of all, we have to figure out why the ghost of King Lysandus is haunting his, I guess, the seat of his kingdom, which would be Daggerfall City. And secondly, we have to find a letter that Emperor Uriel Septim VII wrote to the Queen of Daggerfall, but the letter never arrived. But before we can do that, we've been shipwrecked. You wake and look around the room. Some hours ago, you were in a boat en route to Daggerfall when a storm of supernatural strength boiled over the Iliac Bay like a malefic creature. Your boat was destroyed, but you managed to swim through the churning water to a promontory rock. There you found a cave and escaped the fury of the storm. You had only just lit a small fire when a mudslide sealed you within. Your fear of being buried alive calmed when you saw the corridor leading out of the cavern. Perhaps there is a way out of this cave after all. Once free of the cave, you can begin the Emperor's quest. There is a tutorial, but there's no real need for me to do it. Anything that's going to be going on, I can explain anyway. So, all right. So, there's my fire. There's a tree that, I don't know, maybe I was sitting on. And there's the corridor. But with all that character creation nonsense, now it's been almost 30 minutes. So I'm going to stop the video here and pick things up next time. So as always, Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.